One. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about sleep and the sleep cycle. I guess the first thing I want to talk about is why do we fall asleep at all? That is, how come we're not awake 24 hours a day? Or once we go to sleep, why don't we stay asleep? While you're awake, lysine, I believe it is, builds up in your bloodstream. But what also happens is that your body temperature is in like a sine wave. It goes up, peaks, comes down, bottoms out, and comes back up again. Not really too unlike these sleep cycles, but instead of being really spiky like this over some hours, it's more of a general wave. So this part of the sleep cycle actually represents part of your body temperature wave. Your body temperature falls and eventually you fall asleep. I don't like this being 1 and 2 because I believe dream sleep right here actually occurs during stage 1 and 2, not above 1. But I think they're actually, technically, this is supposed to be 1 up here where it says awake, so then it'd be, anyway. So what happens is you fall into a deep, deep biological sleep down here at stage 4. Well, what does that mean? You are not dreaming and you are not thinking. That is, the brain is not very active like it is in dream sleep. Well, so what happens down here? Well, technically nothing, but if a person sleepwalks or has night terrors, not nightmares, but night terrors, that those actually happen down here at stage 4 when nothing is really supposed to be happening. Well, why is it that you're not supposed to wake a sleepwalker up? Will they die? Will they go crazy? No, the idea is waking up a sleepwalker is dangerous, not so much for them, but for you. Because when they wake up, they're not going to know what's happening, and they might actually strike out at you. For example, a night terror, a person is upright, actually sitting up, their eyes are completely open, and they're screaming at the top of their lungs. If you wake them up, once they're over their initial shock, they may say, "Why did you wake me up?" And you'll say, "Because you were screaming." And they will deny, "No, I wasn't." Because they have no idea. They have no idea that that's what they were doing. So what happens then is you go back up, and this is dream sleep. Because if you look at this graph, is you are very close to being awake. If you are dreaming and someone comes into your room and starts talking to you, you will actually be able to answer. And in fact, again, you may open your eyes and answer and then completely fall asleep again. At least that's what it looks like to the outside observer. But in fact, you were actually asleep the whole time. How far up in the dream, in my opinion, is how coherent your answer is. If you are down here, right, and someone is at, or even actually at this boundary, and someone asks you a question, your answer is not likely to be coherent and to not make sense to them at all. What happens then is, as the night goes on, the biological sleep gets more shallow. And I don't really like this part over here. As I understand it, dream sleep gets shorter, not longer, but closer together. So you jump from short dream to short dream to short dream until finally you wake up. So you may wake up and say, "Oh my gosh, I had the most amazing dream." Well, no, you didn't. You had the most amazing maybe 2 or 3 dreams, You woke up, your brain said, "Oh my gosh, what have you been doing while I was away?" And it crushes whatever it can together, throws out what doesn't make sense in order to make a more coherent um, story. So when you wake up and you say, "Oh my gosh, at the beginning of the dream I was in this place, but at the end of my dream I was in this other place," that is much more likely to be two dreams that your brain crushed together than it is to be one really wild dream. So let me go back a bit. How is it that people can sleepwalk down here in stage 4, but you cannot sleepwalk in here it says stage 1, in between stage 1. How about I just say in REM sleep, in dream sleep? Because while you're dreaming, there is a neuroleptic that is a chemical that paralyzes your muscles so that if you dream you are running, you don't actually get up and run and hurt yourself. So what can happen, though, is there's a thing called sleep paralysis, in which a person wakes up and they are physically paralyzed because this neuroleptic has not completely leached out of the bloodstream. The brain really wants to have explanations for things, and it's oftentimes very scary for someone who has sleep paralysis because you want to know why. Why am I awake but I'm paralyzed? Just as you're falling asleep and just as you're waking up, it is not uncommon to hallucinate. And this is not due to drugs. This is not due to any kind of brain defect or anything else. It's entirely natural. Not unnatural, but natural. What happens then is the person wakes up, they can open their eyes, but they can't move their body, and their brain will search for an answer, and in that sort of like twilight area in between being fully awake and being fully in dream sleep, not fully asleep anyway, it's not uncommon for someone to hallucinate that there's a shadow either at the end of the bed or on top of them. Then, of course, by the time that they actually do wake up, the shadow is gone. The idea being that people will oftentimes believe that there was some spirit, that there was something in the room that was holding them down, because that's the only thing that makes sense to them. But that's sleep paralysis. If you do not write down your dreams when you wake up, it is not likely for you to remember them. My personal opinion is that if you are just coming up to dream sleep or just coming down away from dream sleep and then you wake up, you are not likely to remember your dreams. But if you are in a dream and then wake up, then you are. You may have had this happen to you when you wake up in the middle of the night and maybe you're really upset. You have a strong emotion and you're not quite sure why. You think, "Oh my gosh, I had this really, really bad dream," and then you fall asleep again. You may, if you fall asleep fast enough, you may actually go back into that dream. Number 1 and number 2 here. Number 1 is the cognitive approach to dreams. This is the one I think makes the most sense. It's that during the day, you have gained all of these memories, and at night then you are processing this memory in your brain to figure out what does it mean to you, what does it mean for your life. This is the one that makes the most sense because when I interpret dreams for students, it's the one that really clicks with them. That is, I say, this is what I think that you were experiencing during this dream, and oftentimes they'll say, yes, that makes sense to me. The second one here is that this is Freudian, that dreams are unconscious processes. That is, Freud said that you are thinking such bad things that if you really knew what you were thinking about, you would be you'd be sick. You would not be able to handle it. So the only time that these really negative, bad, taboo thoughts can come out is while you're sleeping. Number three at the top of the page, this is the biological, the medical model, if you will. When someone says, I had a near death experience and I saw a light and then I saw fill in the blank, I saw my parents or I saw, I don't know, whatever, people who are dead, that in this particular case, as the brain is shutting down, random fragments of memories are being triggered, and that your brain makes a story out of these random neural firings. I don't like this one. I don't think that it makes any sense. And I think the likelihood of the brain actually putting any kind of coherent story together is less likely than with the other two.